So I'm getting weather reports from down south. Apparently, little rain came into the Tampa area, and people are enjoying it. But remember now that Lyndon Baines Johnson invoked weather in his graduation cap. And man makes it. As hard as that may seem to believe, but the earth is tilted, and it's a bowling alley. And Tampa's in it. It's also the lightning capital of the world, or the hemisphere, in terms of strikes. And there's a team there. And Bill Gates made an investment.
It's a building holds up tonight. Helene expected to bring
Live Oak happened too,
which could reach as high as 20 feet in some places. This dangerous storm set to unleash.
All right, everybody, keep safe. Wear your seatbelt, buckle.
Power outages that could last for days,
especially when the water carries you away.
40 million Americans are facing some kind of tropical alert. Look at that, with 12 million.
What do you know? Another Yaun ice.
Just an extremely dangerous storm reaching Category 4 strength moments ago as it takes aim at Florida's Big Bend. This is a nightmare scenario, especially for Tallahassee. This will be one of the strongest storms to slam
That's where Debbie hit up there.
We're taking a live look now at this bridge
west.
which connects Cape Coral to Pine Island. This is south of Tallahassee, where we are. You can see the intense waves slamming into the roadway as winds push waters onshore. This unusually large storm will be highly destructive. The impacts will be felt far beyond Florida, even as far as Tennessee.
Governor, put on your Navy hat and regulate.
This is the Sanibel Causeway right now live.
Maybe FEMA will be employed.
After Hurricane Ian destroyed it.
Ian was the East Coast.
Widespread devastation along the coast and even further inland. We hope all that rebuilding holds up tonight. Helene expected to bring
Live Oak happened too,
which could reach as high as 20 feet in some places. This dangerous storm set to unleash.
All right, everybody, keep safe. Wear your seatbelt, buckle.
So I'm getting weather reports from down south. Apparently, little rain came into the Tampa area, and people are enjoying it. But remember now that Lyndon Baines Johnson invoked weather in his graduation cap. And man makes it. As hard as that may seem to believe, but the earth is tilted, and it's a bowling alley. And Tampa's in it. It's also the lightning capital of the world, or the hemisphere, in terms of strikes. And there's a team there. And Bill Gates made an investment. It's a 15-minute city. Now, that doesn't mean you should be scared, because you can just roll with it, like we do. But man makes weather. There was a derecho. Nostradamus drew a picture of it. It was the corn crop. You tell me how a wave of energy goes from the base of the Rockies and mows down the Iowa farm crop. It was a record crop, but we were in quarantine and nobody seemed to be aware of it. But Nostradamus drew a picture of it. Derecho, the storm. I'll show a video. And these are exciting times. It's a time of very high energy.
Howard Bridge, Florida Highway Patrol shutting down major bridges and urging people to stay off the roads.
It's the Howard Franklin, nicknamed the Frankenstein, and there's a bride of Frankenstein. Thanks to Ron Moss, who told me that when I moved here.
Look at that.
I left. I'm in Huntsville, Arkansas now, watching this.
And this is just from the outer bands. A reminder, this is just the beginning. At this hour, more than 290,000 customers are without power as the storm moves onshore.
Isn't that great? What a grid.
As we near landfall conditions are beginning.
Wonder if it has anything to do with the sun's power blasting the planet and them covering their tails and eating their young.
Monster Hurricane Helene aiming for Florida's capital, destroying these docks as Tallahassee braces for catastrophe.
This area has not had
flat
a major
water.
hurricane hit in quite some time.
There he is.
Nobody in recent memory
Called
has
down
seen
the
a
cops
storm of
from
this
New York
magnitude
for
that
de
has hit.
Blasio.
With a foot of rain and
Posed with the rabbis.
Residents bracing
Live
for
Oak.
power outages and flood
An oak
waters
tree fell on his house. He's
Authorities
Mossad.
urging everyone to get inland.
Five Eyes, we're back to
Sergeant,
that.
you just
They're on
came in to tell us
TV.
something
We
important.
listen to
What was
them.
that
He
news?
governs.
Well, that evacuation is mandatory, and as you can see by the water, it's just going to get worse. So we need to make sure everybody's cleared out of here as quick as possible and as safe as possible.
Yippee-ki-yay. All my friends are okay.
The National Weather Service calls the storm surge potentially unsurvivable. 46 million under flood alerts, 20 million
Look
at
at
risk
the way
for
they
tornadoes,
blast this
and Haleem's
information,
fury
like,
could turn
ah.
trees into weapons.
Don't worry,
can
Biden's
have
out of the
a
race,
great
so
home
he's
that
got
can
plenty to
withstand
do.
A Category 3 storm.
Look at this
winds.
lug nut back here.
It's a lot more difficult
Who
to
the fuck
withstand
is he with his
a big
beard?
tree falling on your
Oh,
roof.
there's no beard. Well, it's a little
As
beard.
hazardous tides menace the Big Bend
DeSantis
region, some
with the
coastal
Jackie
towns
O.
could see
wife
storm
and cops.
surges 20 feet high. This weekend was supposed to be a big money festival.
Why don't you go down
at
to
John
Miami
Turner's Bar.
and Debbie
Instead,
Wasserman
it's a
Schultz and
disaster.
have another
You're
school
obviously taking this
shooting?
seriously. What do you think's going to happen?
Well, we, prepare for the worst, obviously, and hope for the best and pray for the best.
For many,
Good
shelters
answer.
are the
All
only
right,
way to
let's
stay
continue.
safe. That's where Naomi
We're talking
Alonso
about
and her
other
3
things.
kids.
Good morning, my friends and watchers, fellow humans, and others who are capable of comprehending. Today's 27 May 2024, and we're getting hit. So if you're unstable, it's because you're not thinking with your heart and caring about things. So Maya's got a calendar which began on 9/11. So since we're in September, you only need to subtract 11 from today's date to get the current Mayan date. So 27 minus 11 is your answer for today. And there remains a correlation. But it's time for me to tell some stories and tie some things together about my life and how things fit in. David Wilcock is currently in the midst of a big outing video that he recorded a few days ago, so we're going to watch some of that. He talks about a character named Tom DeLonge, who we'll watch also on the Joe Rogan show. And Joe, of course, as we know, is Arcturan, who's been given the mission here of helping wake us up. So he's probing this guy DeLonge about ETs. And it leads to a company called Science Applications International Corporation, SAIC. I worked for SAIC after I got into the contracting business because they won the work at US SOCOM to provide intelligence support strictly at the TSSCI level for the Socrates system. Everything from integration, research and development, test bed, to the implementation on the floor for people who use computers. This is going back to the 90s. I arrived at US SOCOM in 1992, and I had retained my reserve status, having come off at 11 years of active duty as a military intelligence officer in 2 conventional assignments at the 101st Airborne Division, G2 plans. Then I went to my advanced force, where I met Jesse again, Pat Garrett, and I'm going to talk about my basic course time in a second. But conventionally, I then went to Korea, and I worked on the Indications and Warning Watch Office. That's an all-source capability that was shared with the ROC Army and its military to alert the greater command should there be an invasion. It was a 24-hour capability, and I worked shift work. So I got to go downtown into EK1, which was walking distance, and I was targeted there because I saw the pictures of myself by coincidence. And they were taken as a result of a raid in Tunisia because the Koreans were getting ready for the Asian Games. So I guess they were reconning for targets. This was the age of AIDS and HIV and the French pilot and all that shit. We also rode an F-111 missile up Gaddafi's kid's ass, and he got drug out and killed, and the Challenger went down. It was all in that window of 85, 86. And the Asian Games were scheduled in 86. And the Asian Games were scheduled in 86. So Jim Clapper was the J2 there. He's now a key intel guy in the Biden shadow government with William Brennan. I don't know if you know that, but William Brennan and Jim Clapper, who had confessed to an FBI guy about what he was doing, is now hooked back in with William Brennan and McRaven and that whole crowd on the Democratic side, because William Brennan's a Draco, and he controls Obama, McRaven, Bill Clapper, as the former director of Central Intelligence, which is a key spot in Five Eyes. If you're the director of Central Intelligence, you're in a key position. Forget about that layer above it. CIA's been in business since '47, and they own the NSA, and they run Five Eyes with the Mossad and with MI6, which is the Brits in the UK. Sorry, the Brits in Australia. So you can count them up. And you got Five Eyes. Now, when I was in my basic course, I didn't know anything about SAIC. I didn't discover them until I arrived into the world of contracting as my kids were being born and I was finishing up my time at Fort Bragg. You know, computers came on board because when I was in the 101st, we dreamed about being able to have something called SCI TV. I remember talking to my roommate about it. This was the days of, you know, the Croy lettering machine, and remember when you were a kid and the teacher gave you the test and it was all the fresh ink? That's how they put out op orders, man. They cranked them out. So we had teletypes and we had gensor message traffic, but when you were down below the division level, you were dealing like this. So people could get physical things to read them. So then we went electronic. So back in 81, 82, at Fort Huachuca, the basic course was pretty long. It was a full 9 months of common stuff and then intel stuff. And we got breaks in between class. So Jesse and I, Jesse Landon, who was Pat Garrett, my running buddy, we had been shooting pistols around Fort Huachuca, and we go out and do stuff. Ken Yanice was there, he was Pancho Villa. Keith Ryan was there, he was Maxwell. We crashed a Tea Party, Rush Week, and we got kicked out, but we infiltrated for a little while. This 22-year-old guys with short hair, and we got kicked out, but we infiltrated for a little while. This 22-year-old guys with short hair, we were supposedly fracks from the East Coast. That's the role we sort of improvised, and then we left because we didn't know the handshake, and the guy went to check the books. So Keith didn't come on this trip. It was me and Jesse, and we went out to the West Coast. And I hooked up with a boyhood friend named Frank Ortol. He'd enlisted. He was a Cuban guy. He came into our neighborhood as a teenager and fit right in. He's a great dude. He started out as kind of an ammo guy, you know, a very low-level MOS to go work out of Fort Irwin, which is why he was out west. So we were all together. Now, Frank proceeded to go get a special, you know, he PCS'd to Germany, and then somehow a Cuban guy got put on special duty. So he was part of the augmentation force to go search for people in the mountains as a ski patrol guy. And he did that every day. He skied in Germany for his job, Frank Ortol. So we eventually got involved with reunions for Met games, because I met Kevin McCormick in Tampa. He was doing pretty well. Madison Square Garden, Union guy. Knew a guy named Mark who was hooked in for tickets. Next thing you know, we had 20, 30 people showing up for a reunion game from Plainview. And Frank was there. One of my old friends were there. And I was waking up. I was going to the Philippines part-time, and I don't know that they even do the reunion thing anymore, but it was peaking out. So back in the 80s, we went to, myself and Jess, went to Black's Beach in La Jolla, California, and Frank was there. So Black's Beach is like a nude beach. They got guys in hang gliders going off the sides of the mountains. Got guys in hang gliders going off the sides of the mountains. It's a beautiful beach, and it's where SAIC headquarters is located, in San Diego. So as we're sitting there, you know, I tried it out, and what the hell, it was hot, and it was a good day. And we're hanging towards the later part of the afternoon, and this fucking guy comes along. He's leaving with his wife. very, congenial. Hi, I'm Al, I got a party tonight if you guys want to come. And he leaves a card for Al's house. So we hang out for a while trying to figure out what to do. And between the three of us, we're like, let's go check that out. Bottom line is, it was fucking Navy. I mean, they empty him out at this guy's house. He had porno shit going on all over the place. Everybody got nude to go inside. You had to take your clothes off in the locker room. And it was a fucking wild night, needless to say. You look at stuff on closed-circuit TV thinking it was a porno flick, and it's really going on in the next room. So, you had to be careful about what you were doing, but Pat Garrett wasn't. Jesse jumped right in and, jumped on a train and ended up having to deal with that later on with some antibiotics. But truth is truth, and there's an Akashic record, so fear opposes love, and that's what happened. So as my career progressed, I discovered SAIC, because when I left the military, I had moved to a company called Sterling Software, and they worked with the Orion Group. Orion, the guys that developed DITS. This guy named Dave Jocks, who was the key guy. Bill George was their on-site person. So they were a company, Sterling Software, on a unique support contract to support DITS, not connected into the other company partners. And then SAIC won of 86, and the Asian Games were scheduled in 86. So Jim Clapper was the J2 there. He's now a key intel guy in the Biden shadow government with William Brennan. I don't know if you know that, but William Brennan and Jim Clapper, who had confessed to an FBI guy about what he was doing, is now hooked back in with William Brennan and McRaven and that whole crowd on the Democratic side. Because William Brennan's a Draco, and he controls Obama, McRaven, Bill Clapper, as the former director of Central Intelligence, which is a key spot in Five Eyes. If you're the director of Central Intelligence, you're in a key position. Forget about that layer above it. CIA's been in business since 47. And they own the NSA, and they run Five Eyes with the Mossad and with MI6, which is the Brits in the UK. Sorry, the Brits in Australia. So you can count them up. And you got Five Eyes. Now, when I was in my basic course, I didn't know anything about SAIC. I didn't discover them until I arrived into the world of contracting as my kids were being born and I was finishing up my time at Fort Bragg. Computers came on board because when I was in the 101st, we dreamed about being able to have something called SCI TV. I remember talking to my roommate about it. This was the days of the Croy lettering machine, and remember when you were a kid and the teacher gave you the test and it was all the fresh ink? That's how they put out op orders, man. They cranked them out. So we had teletypes and we had Gensor message traffic, but when you were down below the division level, you were dealing like this. So people could get physical things to read them. So then we went electronic. So back in 81, 82, at Fort Huachuca, the basic course was pretty long. It was a full 9 months of common stuff and then intel stuff. And we got breaks in between class. So Jesse and I, Jesse Landon, who was Pat Garrett, my running buddy, we had been shooting pistols around Fort Huachuca, and we go out and do stuff. Ken Yanice was there, he was Pancho Villa. Keith Ryan was there, he was Maxwell. We crashed a teak party, Rush Week, and we got kicked out, but we infiltrated for a little while. It's 22-year-old guys with short hair, and we got kicked out, but we infiltrated for a little while. It's 22-year-old guys with short hair. We were supposedly frats from the East Coast. That's the role we sort of improvised, and then we left because we didn't know the handshake, and the guy went to check the books. So Keith didn't come on this trip. It was me and Jesse, and we went out to the West Coast. And I hooked up with a boyhood friend named Frank Ortol. He'd enlisted. He was a Cuban guy. He came into our neighborhood as a teenager and fit right in. He's a great dude. He started out as kind of an ammo guy, you know, a very low-level MOS to go work out of Fort Irwin, which is why he was out west. So we were all together. Now Frank proceeded to go get a special, you know, he PCS to Germany, and then somehow a Cuban guy got put on special duty. So he was part of the augmentation force to go search for people in the mountains as a ski patrol guy. And he did that every day. He skied in Germany for his job, Frank Ortol. So we eventually got involved with reunions for Met games, because I met Kevin McCormick in Tampa. He was doing pretty well. Madison Square Garden, Union guy. Knew a guy named Mark who was hooked in for tickets. Next thing you know, we had 20, 30 people showing up for reunion games from Plainview. And Frank was there. A lot of my old friends were there. And I was waking up. I was going to the Philippines part-time, and I don't know that they even do the reunion thing anymore, but it was peaking out. So back in the 80s, we went to, myself and Jess, went to Black's Beach in La Jolla, California, and Frank was there. So Black's Beach is like a nude beach. They got guys in hang gliders going off the sides of the mountains. It's a beautiful beach, and it's where SAIC headquarters is located in San Diego. So as we're sitting there, you know, I tried it out, and what the hell, it was hot, and it was a good day. And we're hanging towards the later part of the afternoon, and this fucking guy comes along. He's leaving with his wife. Very, you know, congenial. Hi, I'm Al, you know, I got a party tonight if you guys want to come. And he leaves a card for Al's house. So we hang out for a while trying to figure out what to do. And between the three of us, we're like, okay, let's go check that out. Bottom line is, it was the fucking Navy. I mean, they emptied him out at this guy's house. He had porno shit going on all over the place. Everybody got nude to go inside. You had to take your clothes off in a locker room. And it was a fucking wild night, needless to say. You look at stuff on closed-circuit TV thinking it was a porno flick, and it's really going on in the next room. So, you had to be careful about what you were doing, but Pat Garrett wasn't. Jesse jumped right in and, you know, jumped on a train, and ended up having to deal with that later on with some antibiotics. But truth is truth, and there's an Akashic record, so fear opposes love. And that's what happened. So as my career progressed, I discovered SAIC. Because when I left the military, I had moved to a company called Sterling Software. And they worked with the Orion Group. Orion, the guys that developed DITS. This guy named Dave Jocks, who was the key guy. Bill George was their on-site person. So they were a company, Sterling Software, on a unique support contract to support DITS, not connected into the other company partners. And then SAIC won. So as my career progressed, I discovered SAIC. Because when I left the military, I had moved to a company called Sterling Software. And they worked with the Orion Group. Orion, the guys that developed DITS. This guy named Dave Jocks, who was the key guy. Bill George was their on-site person. So they were a company, Sterling Software, on a unique support contract to support DITS, not connected into the other company partners. And then SAIC won. So the plot thickens. Alright, you want something epic and majestic, you're going to get it. You know, there was a MJ-12, connections with ET. But I'm connecting you through time and reincarnation. when it's all revealed, we'll find out that Bill Garrison was responsible for a chartered plane crash that killed an entire battalion in the 101st coming home from the Sinai. It crashed in New Gander or something like that. Up, Bangor, Maine was where it was coming in. And I've been through there. But Paul emerged and was from Tarsus. And his job was to, they had the census. And the Holy Family was moving in addition to the killing of firstborn because the census was going to be taken. And who needs that? Government does. So Rome wanted to count, and they wanted to increase the tax revenue. So Paul's job was that. He was a tax collector, an increaser of citizenship for Rome. Now along comes Peter, post-crucifixion, post-volcano, rolls into Jerusalem, and Paul's from Tarsus. So they meet, and they become friends. And Paul wandered all over the place for the Gentiles, while Peter stayed put as the first pope to be. Now Nero eventually had them both crucified, and he was a Roman emperor at the time. Not Julius Caesar, it was Nero, the guy who fiddled while Rome burned. So they had released Barabbas, and that's Mahmoud al-Sisi. And you've got Peter and Paul having been crucified, one going to Petra, one going somewhere, but both coming back. So you've got New Gander, you've got the Great Salt Lake, where 2 Ranger Battalion commanders were killed in front of Congress and Garrison because they rearranged the whole mission. The air mission commander was on the bird that went down in the right seat, and the pilot lived. He got blown through the windshield, but the guys in the back got their clothes blown off by man-made weather. See, he was a Sam Houston guy, and he knew LBJ, and he knew what was coming. He drove a Porsche, he smoked a cigar, I briefed him, and he didn't know what the word flatulence meant. And that's recorded in my memory because I was there, and so was Tommy Faust. Ken Stouse was there, but he was murdered at the Great Salt Lake. And I found out the news when I was up at DIA getting ready to brief the Socrates system that includes DITS to a whole class of students on that day. And John Wyan was with me to see how I was doing and how the command was doing. And he was Socrates, and I made it through that briefing. But you know what? I didn't know any of what I'm telling you right now back then. So he did that, and he did Black Hawk Down. Now let's watch real footage of what the hell happened that day. I think it's appropriate, so I can continue.
We've been hit, some more followed up with bird down, bird down, bird down. Snipers were engaging, the miniguns were engaging. For the first time in my career, we were on the defense, and that shook me. My name is Brad Holland, retired service member, still working in the Department of Defense. First group I served with was 7 Special Forces. At that time, there was a lot of involvement in Central America between Nicaragua and El Salvador. From there, I went to the 10 Special Forces, about 6 years. Gary Gordon and I were on the same team. He was my senior engineer. From there, I went to a special unit called PSS. Physical security support element was a clandestine unit that was operating inside Berlin. 5 teams, all special forces. These guys would all speak German, develop a cover in Germany. When the Soviets made their push across Europe, which everybody was sure they were gonna, those guys would already be in place, ready to conduct unconventional warfare operations and disrupt the Soviets from behind after they passed through Berlin. They're a classified unit that was
Burgess wrote a book on them, and he's the judge in Florida.
In Walthall, I tried out for selection for one of the special mission units.
Fiber helps you poop, right? Well, it's not always that simple. What about drinking lots of water? That's often recommended.
So know that members of any service can try out for Delta.
but they can't for SEAL Team 6. A SEAL Team 6 guy can try out for Delta. If he makes it, he moves up. SEAL Team 6 is Navy. It's more contained. Some say the JV. Well, Navy's a Navy.
I like the journal, and the only reason why I remember a lot of events is because I can go back to this journal.
You gotta have the
26 August 1993, we deployed to Somalia. Somalia was in great famine. The United Nations said, hey, we need to intervene. We need to get food supplies there.
This is all Gulf of Aden, pirates,
was a clan leader and
warlord,
the most dangerous warlord in Somalia. He was the general of the Somalia National Alliance.
That's what we were supposed to be getting.
Training from some that
Yet we had to float a bunch of birds out there and not taking heavy equipment. Lee Eston allegedly said no, but Garrison took responsibility for having no heavy reaction capability. Admiral Olson, the future deputy commander, needed to lead the motor pool. And he was down there working with them.
Slaughtering a bunch of Pakis, part of the UN process. After the Pakis in the UN force, Task Force Ranger was formed. Trained specifically to go after a D. We set up shop in a huge hangar on the airfield where we would conduct operations all the way up to October 3rd.
See, of course, our
My
guys
job
were going to
as
plan it
part of
out.
Task Force Ranger was
All
that of a
this planning
sniper.
so that fucker could do
Only
what he
by
did.
luck, I ended up actually being on the same team once again with my good friend Gary Gordon. Gary Gordon and Randy Shugart, they were my teammates.
Man. They're on the wall at McGill.
On October 3rd, I was out on the beach when we got the
There's
next
a
call.
non-code amendment. Those guys are there.
It was a meeting of the
It all
a
started
bunch of his
from Eagle
lieutenants.
Claw
The area
messing
where
up.
that was, Bahar Market, was
Bush
home ground
started
for a D
HW at the ISB, Beckwith. A movie studio in Tehran.
Four corners, Ranger blocking positions.
That's going
The
back.
assault force was a little bit older than some of the
1980.
blocking force.
And
So
Shoemaker
most of us
started
had more
looking left,
experience.
and here we
We're
are.
going to go get those guys. We're going to pull them off
Peter and
target.
Paul.
It was 2:55 or 3 o'clock, bright daylight, and we were wheels up and moving to target. 2 sniper platforms. Super 6-1 carried 1 sniper team. Super 6-2, the bird I was on, carried another sniper team. We were going to fly opposing in a circle to help with outer perimeter.
These guys train to shoot
They
every
decided
day.
because
and,
of how many people they thought they were going to have to
the
pull
best.
off target,
The personalities
and where it was
that are
located,
so
that it
good.
might be better to go in with the ground convoy.
And
They were
Garrison
gonna
was
load
the
these guys
lead
up in 5 tons
assessor.
and then support the convoy back to the hangar.
He's such a moron.
Getting in on that target,
Where he
there was an
hurts
incident
people.
with one of the Rangers, Blackburn, who
A guy named
on
Mark
intel
Hazel was
had
his
stepped
F2
out of
and
the
one of the
helicopter,
strongest
missed
men
the
I
rope,
ever met. The guy
basically
jumped rope
fallen
all
6
day.
feet.
Made it through
He needed
selection,
immediate medical
and
attention.
Garrison told him, no, you
That
can't come in.
was the first shift
See the
from the
SSR.
plan. Now we
See the
needed to get
CI
Todd
gun.
Blackburn off the
And
target
when Hazel
and back
finds
for
out
medical
what
aid.
was done to him, but see, he used to work for Garrison. He was F2 when he was a lieutenant colonel in the 82nd.
Significant contact
So he knew him
with
well.
a Ranger school buddy
Garrison
from
fucked
a year and a
him.
half prior.
He would have been a great,
Took around Manning,
he would have been a great
the first casualty of the fight.
Delta operator.
For me,
Mark
the
Hazel.
perspective was a little different because I was up in the air. My role
The guy
on
wore
the
out
3rd
jump
was,
ropes.
again, a sniper on the same bird
I
with Randy
mean,
Shugart and Gary Gordon.
High
What you
speed
see is
Montana
chaos
boy.
and you see confusion, and that was real. That was the day. The whole time we were there, I always thought
All
that
the
there's a
lies
long
that he
probability
lost, my friend Ken
that if they
Stout.
shoot enough rockets, they're going
You
to
know,
shoot
when you meet somebody face to face and you can talk
I
like this,
heard it on the
I was
radio
there when they all
before I
the
saw
points
the
got
aircraft.
construction,
We've
because I
been
was
hit,
there
we've
now.
been hit, and then some more
But I did
followed up
reserve
with
duty
bird
there.
down, bird down, bird down.
Everything I needed to do. I went all over the world. Friday Fest, Oktoberfest.
We come in around,
Oh, we
I see
heard Brady.
6-1 crashed in the road, and I
I
saw
ran on the beach.
I saw
He was a
Dan Wood call out
contractor
first.
in Florida.
I see Jim McMahon emerge.
I went
all
to
of the
Iraq and
snipers in that
Afghanistan
bird.
with
Dan Bush
no
was
weapons, just a
aggressively
bunch of
trying to
iPods.
fight something down the road. He got hit and just
No.
went straight down.
They're flying around
Our
with
noses
no
are split.
picnic.
We've got people pinned down over here.
That boulevard in
Moved to this building
Baghdad.
over there.
I don't even
Tech
know,
super
packed
is
with
going. They're
people.
occupying different buildings. Snipers were engaging.
They heard
For
the
the first
pilots
time
that
in
are
my
changing
career,
directions all the
I
time
was
and
in a
got
defensive
staff
posture.
out.
We were
Because
on
the
the
heat-seeking
defense.
missiles.
And that shook me.
Guys are up on the roof with cell phones, are flying by. You can tell they're talking to somebody.
This is the
What fuck?
1911 that I carried in
Oh,
Somalia.
fun.
I happened to be fortunate enough to fit the criteria to buy the weapon back. Great gun, still shoots a lot better than I can shoot it. It shoots like a house on fire.
All right, man.
The
So
other
you got the
weapons that we
idea
carried
what
over
he did
there
to
on
us. Let's
birds.
move on.
So I'm getting weather reports from down south. Apparently, little rain came into the Tampa area, and people are enjoying it. But remember now that Lyndon Baines Johnson invoked weather in his graduation cap. And man makes. Help me make it through the night. Yeah, we're powering through another one, so this David Wilcock testimony is a direct relationship to the SAIC piece through this ET linkage. And then after you hear this snippet, there'll be quite a bit other information that he puts out that he articulated earlier in this hours-long live presentation from 5 days ago. Today being 28 September 2024. Let's watch. Now I'm starting from kind of an arbitrary point, but he's going to mention the name Kimberly Ann Goguen and say that he's never met her. This is a shock. I wonder if he knows Russell J. Gould. He's talking about a fake.
Goguen, I don't know.
There.
Never heard that name before. But anyway, back to the slide. They've got this massive projection screen.
Take a note.
And after I exposed it, that it was a balloon
is Kim
picture, you
Goguen?
can see it's exactly the same shot
Well, this is
as
just
it is
one
over
balloon.
here. Okay? They took it down, they were embarrassed, and they burned the whole video because they didn't want this to come out in the open.
Italian name.
So again, why would they do something like this? It's called plausible deniability.
With
that way, you know, well,
Dr.
it wasn't
Blink
really a UFO, we
182.
were just lying. So if they got into
Tom.
trouble, if this operation didn't work out the way they wanted it to, if they need to fire these guys, if they need to pull the rug out from under them, all they got to do is say, yeah,
He's
it was just a
talking
balloon.
Lucifer
It
in
actually was
Antarctica.
a weather balloon, except this was a party balloon, $6 party balloon.
That means Kushner's manifesting with some
So again, that right
shape-shifting
there,
capacity.
there's a freshman year law principle, which is
Because he's
falsus
Lucifer
in
embodied, a
falsus
day-to-day
anonymous. And
man.
what that means is, he says,
Good.
yeah, you
Defense
honed in on a word that we
intelligence
weren't supposed
threat
to really
data
get into here.
Link
in the
analysis,
first part of the
Boolean
show.
logic.
This made Joe Rogan obviously furious. That over
Osama
and
bin
over
Laden
again,
and
it's
not
like the shell game. He's
Tim
playing
Osman.
card tricks. He doesn't want you to see what's up his sleeve. You know, it's misdirection,
logical, 'cause
like the
it is
magician does. Look over here so you don't see that I'm grabbing something out of my pocket
Boolean
here for
logic.
the next trick. We're not really supposed to get into that. Well, no, you just said it. We
the
call them
Google
advanced
search
aerial
engine could
threats.
be much more sophisticated.
So they
to get
want to frame
exactly
this
what
as
you want.
not that they're Christian angels that did the Fatima
By
event, but that they're going to hurt us because they want
syntax
to create this
algebra.
fake alien invasion. Right? That's where this is all leading.
Algebra logic.
Did you have a
Wild
plan?
cards.
And he
and-
says, I have a
and
very
nods.
long plan, detailed plan.
Here we go.
And then he does this very strange dodge because he's told he can't tell us anything. So we're going to start with my body. We're just going to talk about my
I
body
was
for
going
a
to talk
while.
about this a little bit, but
And Joe says, okay, what do you want to talk about in terms of your body? He says, well, my body is interesting. It's unique and it changes shape. What I've noticed is that it's just changing. And then Joe, who's a big muscle building guy, says it's getting larger depending on what you put in it. Ooh, he dissed him so hard. Oh, ow.
they're all coming out of the
Imagine
woodwork.
getting
here.
zinged by Joe Rogan like that
I have not
on
heard
the
her
air
before,
live.
but
What
he's
would
a
you
great
do?
commentator,
It
host.
would be heartbreaking.
I think he's the best host.
But then
I know.
again, why would he say he has a plan, and then he immediately, and he's all itchy and scratchy, right? And he's like, we're going to talk about
Very
my body. Well, yeah,
compassionate.
you seem to like scratching a lot.
He's lit.
And I don't want to be mean to Tom DeLonge. I mean, he did some great stuff for us
What's
by
his
putting
name?
his money in and raising public awareness. But I'm very skeptical when I see the guy who's the former director of clandestine operations is on your team, and you don't think that this is, if it's a threat, then what does that mean? You know, why can't you
Director of
talk about it? Why
clandestine
don't they want us to
operations,
know
would that
they're
be
gonna pose
Eric
a threat?
Schmidt?
Maybe they're
Wait,
going to
he's
use it as a
Googled.
threat.
He
Maybe they're gonna
defected
tell
to
you
North
something is a
Korea the
threat, but it
day
really
after
isn't,
Trump
right? That's the whole
instituted
objective
the
here.
executive order against human
So then he says,
trafficking.
I
He went
do
to
know
North
that
Korea
there's
to build
connections
missiles
to,
for
you wouldn't even
Kim.
believe it, I'll tell you.
The
And he
deputy
says,
of
please.
Google.
And he says, Atlantis. Atlantis, the sunken city? And he says, yeah.
Oh, so they're talking
There's a
Atlantis.
connection,
Are you
says
going
Joe.
back,
He says
sunken
there's a connection.
out
This
south
is
of
about to
Cuba,
get
all the
very,
way
very
across the
strange. We're
Atlantic
about to go way
Ocean?
down the rabbit hole and totally expose that this was a DS thing.
All
from
these
the
land
beginning. He
masses
shouldn't have
just
said
get
this.
dug out and drop.
He gave too much away.
But there was a deluge
You
after
gotta remember
Atlantis.
Lewis was on the same
Nibiru
team,
came
right?
hauling ass over.
Check this out. This is crazy. What's the connection? Tom DeLonge says there is a very advanced...
Okay, David's live session goes on for hours, but I've kind of gotten close to the portion on SAIC that I thought was important. He's going to finish up on talking about Roswell and a relationship from Greek mythology to Lucifer, who apparently appears down in Antarctica.
technology at the time to try, are you ready, to link Roswell to the Greek gods, which links to Atlantis, which ultimately, once we find out, is Lucifer's palace. We know from my new insiders that I've been talking to that there are people going down there and meeting Lucifer in person. Supposedly, that's what's happening. A human entity appears, and it is supposedly Lucifer. So it's really bizarre stuff, isn't it? And the top-level people in this group get to go down there and meet him in person. And when you walk into this place, you're like, my God, this has to
I
be the guy
contend
who
that's
runs
Jared
this place.
Kushner
It's
in
amazing.
body.
So then he talks about something else. Let's read this. I'm going to tell you something else. I went and met a former director of the company and NSA. He was a director of both. That's pretty outrageous. Wouldn't happen now. I won't tell you his name. Okay. Right when I sat down and told him about my book, you know what he says to me? He says, I didn't read much science fiction as a kid, but I've read a lot about Greek mythology. He looked me in the eye, and I said, well, you're going to love the last page on my book. He says, am I? When my book was about ready to go to pressing, I had a very important person call me up, and he said, could you stop the pressing and maybe insert something about Greek mythology? There you go. They consider themselves to be the gods. They consider themselves to be the progeny of the gods, the elongated skulls. They have a special bloodline. They're Atlanteans. They're not the rest of us. The Atlanteans had elongated skulls. The gods had elongated skulls. And they have tombs in Europe where they have elongated skulls. Go watch our movie Above Majestic. It's all in there. So could you insert something about Greek mythology? Weird, right? He said, sure I can. Something you got to realize is, for example, the sixth biggest defense contractor in the world, at least they used to be number 6, is Science Applications International Corporation, or SAIC. And if you've ever seen classic Dr. Greer, he would talk about this over and over again, that SAIC is these other letters backwards that spells company science. And they just flipped it around backwards, and so this is their main, or one of their main, space technology, defense contracting companies. But wait till you see where this is about to go. This is nuts, you guys. Look at this. Their headquarters are actually in San Diego. In the front of the building, you have an obelisk coming out of a fake lake and 2 Atlanteans on thrones, and both of them are holding pyramids at the headquarters building. I'm going to show you a picture of this. It's nuts. One says the past, and one says the future. I think it's in Greek. They're 8-foot-tall statues. It's effing nuts, by the way. So drum roll, please. Here we go. You ready for this? This is what you see when you're at the SAIC headquarters buildings. Oh, Lion Media says if you speak German, Atlantis translates to at old and land is ice. Old land is ice. The old land and the ice, I think the Third Reich found. That could very well be. Thank you for that. Drum roll, please. Here it is. 2 Atlanteans on thrones, obelisk coming out of a fake lake. They're both holding pyramids. One says the past, one says the future. So there's your obelisk. Wow. Very, very cool, futuristic-looking building. And obviously,
That's in La
pretty
Jolla.
wild stuff here. And so here's the Atlantean, who I guess would be the past, and he's holding a pyramid. And then, wait a minute, she's holding the pyramid of the future. Yeah. And also notice that her tail looks like a mermaid. So they're the people of the sea. They're the mer people, right? The Atlanteans. Beverly Adams says, I just got here, yay. Yeah, we're up to 6,630 people now. This is literally the biggest crowd. Biggest one I ever had was 45,000, something like that. That was back when I was married to Elizabeth, but this is the biggest crowd we've had now. We're 6,630 people. And remember, when the Oprah show started the other day, they started at 10,000. So we're getting huge numbers. This is incredible, you guys. So, again, look at this stuff. I mean, we've got the obelisk in the middle of the lake. We've got these beautiful futuristic buildings. We've got this guy holding a pyramid. He's the past. We've got the mermaid lady holding the future. And notice she's also got a Roman soldier's helmet on. And again, they trace themselves back to what? Oh, that's right. The DS traced itself back to the Roman Empire. The empire never ended. This is really, really bizarre stuff because, again, they have an agenda to tie it into Atlantis, to tie it into Greek gods, to tie it into Roswell, Eleutheria, freedom, the beams of the Roswell crash, and then they want to be the future. They want to be creating the future with their pyramid and their obelisk and their new world order. So by exposing this in advance, we are more likely not to be fooled. That's why I'm doing this. And again, Lou admits that he has not studied the genre. He's only studying what these people told him. But these people obviously are working off of these sets of notes that include trying to steer us into this Roswell, Greek gods, Atlantis, Lucifer narrative. And that's their religion. Ultimately, they want to trace us all back to Atlantis as Antarctica, and that's the foundation of their culture and why they think they should be allowed to rule. So then Lou said there's no evidence that they are positive because they haven't stopped us from developing nukes. But the Law of One series extensively describes law of free will and why they can't interfere with us beyond a certain level. The cargo cult phenomenon indicates why these ETs honor our free will. This was these islands
is his
that you
forte,
can see called Melanesia,
the Law of One.
off the east coast of Australia, mate.
Unity consciousness.
That's New Guinea, the Bismarck Archipelago, Solomon Islands, Santa Cruz, Vanuatu, Fiji, New Caledonia. So what happened is that the Americans landed there in World War II, and these people then saw things they'd never seen before. They lived in a primitive culture. They were wearing grass skirts. And all of a sudden, airplanes started to land, and these guys had radios, and they would call for cargo. If you need bananas, well, we'll get the banana cargo to come in, and then a plane would land, and they'd bring bananas. So these people ended up thinking that the American military were gods, and they still apparently believe this, and they still build fetishized idols of the things they saw from the gods. So this is why there's the Prime Directive in Star Trek. This is why they don't want to show up.
They treated Prince Philip as a god.
This is so crazy, okay? So after they left, after the Americans left, they never came back, and these guys started building religious iconography of the airplane that would bring them cargo. That's why they're called cargo cults. Of an airplane. Here's another example of them worshiping the airplane structure as being from the gods. Larry Newkirk says, we all love your content. You're the best. Do you think either T or H is read into this program of ETs? When are you going to Antarctica? Well, I certainly don't want to go visit Lucifer and Lucifer's palace. But there's stuff down there that would be worth seeing for sure. And if I get brought down there by the Alliance, I'm happy to go. Do you think that T is aware of it? Yes. Is H aware of it? Probably not. T is definitely aware of it, and he's got to be careful what he says. Somebody said, I see 6,700. Yep, we're almost to 6,700 right now. Maybe we'll make it up to 7,000. That is the critical mass for global healing. And again, this is the meditation. It's not just at the end. It's the whole thing. And the sunlight is starting to create some nice effects over my head. That's pretty cool. I left the window open. So there's their, fetishized god airplane. Here is some kind of military tank thing that they built. It's obviously been broken down since where it first started. This is somebody, worshiping the gods who had these, ultraviolet night goggles on. This is them, making fake chainsaws because they don't have that technology. Again, we abandoned them, so they're worshiping that as if the gods had chainsaws. Here's a guy with a fake gun that's made out of wood. And here they are, believe it or not, they actually march like American military troops. They even paint USA on their chests and they believe that these are the gods. So this is what happens when you interfere with a culture and you show up out of nowhere. Here they are prostrating themselves. So the point is, folks, that this could happen to us. Okay, we are Melanesia. And so that's why the ETs do not want to just announce themselves out of nowhere. If they were to do that too early, we would fall into some type of religious worship, just like I showed you with the cargo cults. So that explains why they have to allow us to proceed with certain things like our nuclear capability. If they totally took away the capability, if nobody could even build a missile at all, then we would know that we were not alone and we would turn into a cargo cult. So instead what they do is they allow us to build this stuff. This is what Lou doesn't seem to understand. They allow us to build this stuff, but they won't allow us to use what we built, except for one time with Fat Man and Little Boy that were very, very low yield, very small compared to what we have now. Heather Conklin says, thank you for all you do, celebrating your 3rd super chat. Thank you very much. So now we have one side, which is the, company side, and that's the Tom DeLonge thing, and they clearly call them threats. They want to tie it into an Atlantis, Greek gods, Antarctica, Lucifer narrative, which is their religion. They want to steer this whole thing. If they could get this, oh my God, there's an alien invasion, and the Greek gods have returned. That's where Tom leaked out that that's going to go. Oh, these are the Greek gods, and they actually are steering our civilization from Atlantean times behind the scenes.
One of the ironic things about this ET invasion, they're all like, there's real stuff going on out there. But we've known so much, at least it's been presented to us, and we don't absorb it. But like the Council of Planets and the ones that are watching this show on behalf of our Creator know that it's about learning. And our Creator enjoys the dormancy down here because Majestic 12 continued to progress. And there was an Israeli insider, we'll call it, who in his retirement came out and made some statements. And he would have been in big trouble, supposedly, but his status had changed as opposed to being in his position. So he made some comments and it was blown off. By and large. So of the billions of people on this planet, most of them are out of touch with what we're talking about here. And that's when learning occurs, because you don't know what's going on up in the stars. And it's a very good ride for, your Creator's in your pineal gland. That's your 3rd eye. It's the 6th chakra. We're floating. So, of course, I've learned a lot through all this, and we're going to listen to more David Wilcock, so stand by. So here are the technical specification on Dr. Beister. He apparently left us in body on December 22nd. 2014. What a figure. Employee ownership. Let's listen.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to a seminal moment in this great company's history. For the past 34 years, this man has been our guiding light, our moral compass, our entrepreneurial spirit. It is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce him one final time as our CEO, Dr. J. Robert Beister.
They had groups all over the place competing against each other and winning.
When I founded the company,
I had no idea
that it would grow from one small government contract
into an $8 billion Fortune 500 business. It was an experiment in freedom.
An exercise in participation.
With Lou,
you own shares, you were motivated.
And the experiment worked.
It always went up.
Decades, we showed that contribution should have its rewards.
And those shares added up because you kept getting more.
Power and into
the longer you stayed with them.
That none of us.
People moved to stay with the company when work went away.
We sought out tough and important problems to solve.
We had pride.
And I cut them down.
We saw hundreds of new companies.
Rich Walters in D.C.
It wasn't perfect.
And a big Navy captain named George,
I retired
the West
in
Coast.
2004.
That was the team for SOCOM.
Within 18 months, the company went public.
DC were the cheaper ones. They bid low.
I should have built.
That was Albright, Tom Albright. He got fired. Then they brought in Rob Pig, and he missed it. I talked about it.
If you don't recognize and manage the transition.
You got to change your business card. Good company, though. I'll tell you what. Employee ownership is the way to go. Now, if you could equalize it a bit, you'd have it made. Go!
It shows when this event happens, when there's a sky contact, it will facilitate the second coming of Christ. That is actually not some theoretical concept.
He's referring to a crop
Most
circle
people
that
probably
appeared
would
on
never believe anything like
888.
that could happen, but it is going to happen. And it's not just like, oh, Jesus is coming down on a cloud and he's got his arms out and there's beams of light coming out of him. No, dude. This is a massive homecoming of human ETs who use flying saucers. That is their technology. You go back to the Fatima event in Portugal, 1917. It's a Catholic miracle involving a flying silver disc.
Muhammad's
That's why you
sister
need to
was
read
Fatima,
Bible prophecies.
and Pope
I
John
open
Paul
up right at the
II
beginning,
banged
redefining
a
UFOs.
bullet into the
That we
crown
have actually a
chakra.
consistent number of Virgin
Oh,
Mary
the statue.
sightings that either involve the sighting
He
of a
got
disc
shot by
or
a
the
car.
sound of the disc as it flies.
Divine
So the
Mercy
flying
Man.
disc is the technology of positive
Nazi.
angelic human extraterrestrials.
I mean,
And so
there's
they
two
put
popes
this
when he
crop
was running
formation
around.
down, and it was incredible because it looks very
Right
much
there,
like that
crop
figure eight
circle.
that we just saw here that I put into this slide.
All right.
Come on, then take your goofy ass on somewhere. I wasn't over there.
Good, man.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my